comfortable?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. So let's begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this panel. We have a privilege to share some of our thoughts and experiences from working in the healthcare technology industry, the three of us. I think we're going to try and do this more open discussion between us, try and be a little bit more spontaneous, sharing our thoughts, because we each do different things, but we are all connected in the same way, and we're trying to bring technology to improve outcomes of patients and everything. So I would like to start by just giving a chance for each of us to introduce themselves.
Super.
But just to set the stage for whoever's joining us, we are talking about trying to humanize a technology. I think this is sacred. I think medicine is all about humans, whether we are the patients ourselves or the family members of patients or physicians or nurses or physician assistants or administrators, anyone in this industry are humans, and the whole medicine is about helping sick people. So this is, I think, a very sacred topic. I'm glad you joined us. So Isabel and Thomas, thank you so much. This is going to be fun, I hope. Please introduce yourselves and the companies that you've built.
Super. Do you want me to get started,
Go,
or you want
please.
to go?
Yeah, no, go.
So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with us. So, I'm Isabel. I'm the founder of Eileen Health. We are a diagnostic as a service platform. And what we do, and taking it to the topic of humanizing healthcare, is that we discovered, or we didn't discover, we saw that the patient, when they need their diagnostics, that is a very crucial part of the medical journey. They take a very long time. When they receive the results, they're not easy to understand. So we wanted to solve for that. So we did it in two parts. First, we developed these self-sampling kits that allow for any patient to take their sample from the comfort of their home. It's convenient, it's time-saving, and many different types of population can do them, from little kids, that if anybody here has kids and have ever gone to take a blood sample, know how difficult it is, to older people that maybe cannot move from their home. And then on the other part is something that truly frustrated me as a patient, and is that when you receive these lab results, they come on a PDF in black and white, difficult to understand, they're directed at the doctor. We believe it could be better explained in plain language for the patient, and as well providing a service for the doctor analyzing this information. So that's basically what we do in trying to humanize the healthcare space.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. So I'm the CEO at Nixie for Children, and our vision is to make sure that children have all the information they need before facing a treatment in the hospital. We first saw that 60 to 80% of the children that go through a surgery process suffer anxiety, and this is mainly because fear of the unknown. So what we do is we create a play environment with the children through the Nixie kit, which is a kit that contains a VR headset that's made of cardboard and allows the children to see what's going to happen beforehand, explained by a cartoon, which is Nixie. And we saw that using this simple way of showing the children and letting them virtually be inside the surgery room beforehand can reduce anxiety, and it can also reduce sedations in oncology treatments and other treatments that we're working on.
Amazing. Remember when we met, just a little bit by background on myself, I'm a pediatrician by background, by training, but I'm also the CEO of a company that builds tools to empower physicians. So I think here, I'll explain a little bit more, but I think here we're seeing how we are humanizing all these different humans in that loop. The patients, the children, their parents, who are really helpless seeing their children seeing them anxious before procedures or treatments. And from our perspective, empowering the providers, the physicians, helping them make more informed decisions based on the science, based on the huge amounts of data that they need to use to make decisions, And I think together this really could make a change. Thomas, remember when we met, you described how you got started. I loved it, the way that you described it, that distinction between the tech and design and the tech, and how you saw how these two can come together to bring something. Could you share that?
Yeah, I think that this conversation is important because sometimes the way of using technology, the most obvious ideas or the first idea that come to mind is not the most human. And my experience is not different. When we started Nixie for Children, the first idea that I got was, let's use virtual reality to help children travel all around the world while they are hospitalized. But the first thing that we saw when we went to a hospital is that only roughly 1% of the children that go through the hospital are the ones that stay. And then just scrapping a little bit more, we discovered the anxiety for the surgery room, and there were no tools, so they were using some kind of pictures to show the children what was going to happen. And at this moment is where Nixie for Children was born, because we were going to use virtual reality to empower the children and to let them see what was going to happen instead of distracting them, which was the first idea. And I think that this happens a lot in all kinds of technology, and we need to put the effort and the time to do the whole design process and put the patient in the center to find these second layer ideas that use tech to empower humans.
Amazing, yeah. Isabel, same for you. I mean, thinking about how you come from understanding what's the pain point, and I appreciate that because, again, when I'm thinking as a technologist, and I'm thinking as a pediatrician, as a physician, but I guess the perspective that you started your journey on was from a real pinpoint of the patients.
Completely.
Can you share some of the feedbacks that you're getting from the patients who are lucky enough to enjoy this technology?
So more than feedback, maybe, is examples where we're making an impact, no?
Perfect.
So one of the first campaigns that we did that was for prevention of prostate cancer. It was a small event with a hospital, and people kept coming, no? And there was this man who was staying in the corner, and he was saying, not for me. My father had this and that, I don't want to do it. Then he saw that the system was pretty fast, it was easy, so he said, okay, sure, why not? Turns out that the result for this patient, he actually had prostate cancer. And he had to, he was put into treatment. For me, that was a shock. Like, wow, wait a second. Like, we're actually helping here. Like, I cannot say as a fact that we were early in the diagnosis. I don't know in what journey of that diagnosis we were. But what I know is that thanks to us, we put him into the right care. And it's super important because in prostate cancer, for example, that can really save lives. So just to say an example of the use of this new technology, that can really help.
Yeah, that is very, very optimistic to think that patients will have that power over their health, over understanding their disease processes, understanding the results of tests and not having to wait a few days, sometimes even weeks, until they get a result.
And I think that, Thomas, you said something that's very important, and it's that when you start doing these projects, entrepreneurship in healthcare, sometimes you have this idea in mind of the use of technology, and then it switches, and it switches when you're really, truly listening to the patient or listening to the providers, and for us, for example, we didn't design the product for kids. But we learned in the process that kids can really benefit, So at the end, I think it's super important to have those systems to really listen, and how do you apply them,
Yeah, sure. I think that this is really important. At the same time, for us, that people that create technology, we need to be really honest, I think, especially in health, because sometimes it's really easy to be carried out by emotion and by the fanciness that tech has, that everyone wants to apply tech. And I want to share a story. When we were doing this preparation for surgery, then we got into intensive care unit, and we did different treatments, and at some point, one of the doctors in one of the hospitals said, hey, this is really interesting. We're preparing for children that are scheduled to go into ICU because it's a heart surgery, whatever, but we have people in here in the ICU that maybe could benefit from VR. Let's do a project. Let's use VR to let them go to Melilla because they have a patient from Melilla. And I was like, okay, let's try, but first we should call one of the patients. And we called one of the patients, and the guy said, Yeah, I think it's interesting, but remembering my experience in the ICU, I was nearly dying, and everything I needed was someone to hold my hand. I didn't need a VR headset. And I think that was really eye-opening, and I was like, oh, wow, like, we shouldn't do this.
Wow.
Like, it's okay, maybe it's not like a really good business decision, but it's human, right? So for people that creates technology, I think we need to be really honest in this sense. And we are responsible of the products that we create. At the same time, we're doing virtual reality for children. Maybe it's the first time that they're going to use a VR headset, a 5-year-old. So I want to really make sure that everything we do, it's because it's the best solution that we have, not just because it's fancy or we are going to do a press release and it's going to be selling a lot of cardboard headsets. Like, let's just do it because it's important.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So, like, the best ideas and probably the simpler ones to implement come from the field.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can relate to that. When we started off 5 years ago, and it was way before the hype of AI.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was AI, but as someone said before, it wasn't cool. Wasn't cool yet. But when we thought how AI decision support tools will help physicians,
Yeah.
we were thinking about helping them not forget things that they need to think about, make more justified decisions about treatment or a workup of patients. So, but then from the field, you understand something else. You understand that the providers, what they are really interested in is a tool that is there with them to think about their patients, so that they can consult with this tool whenever they need it, even if they know what they're doing and they're absolutely sure. It's always improves their confidence. Just to have an AI system double-check that thought process to make sure that they are on the right path.
Yeah.
And it gives them a lot of confidence. And we didn't expect that to be one of the most empowering features of our solution. So
I think it's because at the end, what you're doing is taking common relations, common conversations that are already happening. No? In your case, it's those curbside conversations between doctors of, have you seen this case? This is what I think. No, you mentioned you have a WhatsApp group, no, where you comment about patients. And what you've done is you apply technology to make it much more efficient and overall better, right? So I think that's a bit of the point. No? What can we take from the real world? What's happening that we can apply to technology to replicate it and make it maybe better?
I think there's something really interesting that you said about this man that didn't want to do the test.
Yeah.
Like there's an initial, like, okay, it's not for me. Maybe it's not for me about convincing, about the storytelling of the solutions. And I want to know what's been your experiences in this.
that's a good point to focus on.
It's an ongoing conversation, right?
Skepticism or fear of people, either patients, like in your example, or in our example, it could be trying to sell to a healthcare system or trying to get the adoption of physicians to use AI. We all talk about it. We talk about it in different circumstances, but medicine is a very conservative system, and it should be. But still, there is so much need to add technologies that will help them. So it's about the trust. It's like what you do with children, that sacred moment of a kid before he goes into operation and he's really scared, and you give them something that gives them more trust and more knowledge and more power. They feel strong and they know where they're going into. Same with everyone. It's the same with a stakeholder of a healthcare system or a provider. You want to get on board with your systems. You need to gain the trust.
Yep.
And in each one of our solutions or endeavors, there's a different way of gaining that trust.
I was talking today to, I won't say who, but a laboratory, and we were explaining our solution, and they were like, no, I love it. Let's wait 5 years until that person has 65, he's out, and then the next generation will buy it. It's like, should we wait so long until new generations come and adopt the new technology?
We talked about that. We talked about how we measure the return on investment in these types of solutions, it's hard. It's not all about something that can be quantified. I think, can you share, how do you quantify the value that you bring when you try to sell to a healthcare system?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a struggle. I think we are lacking scales that measure the human component and the well-being of people. That's something that's not going to be measured in money. Like, of course, we are reducing sedation, so this means money because there's no anesthesiologist doing sedation for children, but what about the impact of the family that will need to come every day? If you need to do radiotherapy treatment, which is like 30 or 40 sessions in a row, it's not a painful treatment, but it lasts for 15 minutes. If children are not capable of staying still because they understand that this is important, they will do it under anesthesia. So, of course, you are saving money because you are saving 30 to 40 anesthesias in a row, but what about all the other implications of the family? Because this family is going to have to come earlier to the hospital because of the anesthesia. We'll have to stay for longer, and this is going to impact the family and the organization and everything. And there are some projects where the return on investment on the money side is not that important. Like in surgery, for example, okay, maybe you are saving a little bit of sedation, which may mean cents because anesthesia is really cheap. Mm-hmm. But what's the impact on the whole family? This is not encouraged, I think, enough for the hospitals and the top management people in the hospitals to bet for these solutions, because they are forced to do something that makes the hospital more efficient in money-wise. But I think we're lacking this kind of motivation that we should influx into the healthcare system.
Exactly, because we only measure what costs money. We don't measure the collateral damage that anxiety or misknowledge or misdiagnosis, or we don't measure that.
It's really difficult to measure also, no? Like what's the cost saving or value in prevention? Like I can do an Excel, I can give you numbers, but we don't know until later on, right?
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I find myself doing the cost numbers in the present, like finding today, like, no, wait. With my system, you save on sending a nurse by half, but truly, like, that's not really the value. Like, the value is way more, so I don't know.
Well, I think we should make heroes of these people that have the trust and that are courageous enough to be the bold ones that try new things. Like, I'm thinking of my experience on Teresa Franco. It's like the doctor that trusted us and put a lot of effort into doing a clinical trial that demonstrated that our solution worked before it was anything that was palpable. So these people are the real heroes, and it happens all the time because, okay, maybe you will find that there's someone that invented some kind of diagnostic thing that they're interested in doing a lot of testing inside the hospital because they invented this machine and they are putting pressure into the hospital to keep doing things this way. Yeah. And we will need someone really courageous to say, okay, no, this is better for the patient, and okay, maybe you need to change your business now because things are evolving and this is the new system. Like, we need these people to be really brave and to like have social recognition by everyone, the ones that are just pioneering.
I love what you said, because you mentioned, you put the name and the surname of that person that was the first one who trusted you. Like in my case, when I was doing Eileen, I was super pregnant, like extra pregnant, extra pregnant, and
that's not a medical term.
And I was calling every lab in Spain, and it was no, we're in COVID. Forget it. And I remember very well the first one that for us was Clínica Universidad de Navarra, who took the chance and said, I see it, we want to do it. So you don't forget.
Yeah. I'm measuring outcomes. From our experience, we work globally. We work also in the US market, and from what we've found is that mostly, the bigger healthcare systems, they are more capable of really keeping track of patient matrix, patient outcomes, and it's a long journey. When you introduce solutions like what we're talking about, the outcomes will only be shown really years ahead.
Yeah.
So it does need many. We do need to find the key people who trust and believe in this, and researchers and stakeholders and providers and everyone to take part in that journey.
completely. It would also help that regulation was a bit easier.
Yes.
Because at the end, like, it takes a long time to market. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is, again, I mean, we're in a technology conference event, and healthcare regulation is something just off the charts, much more difficult than any other industries. But then the impact is also, even if you make an error, is much more dangerous. So we can understand why it's a huge challenge for us as companies, but it's rightfully so. And also, now, especially now in this past year, we'll also talk about how the emergence of the large language models have really opened up the willingness and appetite of healthcare systems to try out these tools. And the same goes for the regulators. They're working in Europe, in the US, everyone is working to try not to be an obstacle for us, for companies, technology companies, but rather find a way where we can provide to that appetite, to that need of healthcare systems, but do it safely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can imagine that you need more, you're having more experience with regulators, right?
For us, it was a very a stepping stone in the process of getting Eileen to market. So it took us several months. At the beginning, I was seeing how the sector plays, and maybe not everybody took regulation that strictly for the type of product that we do know, that are self-sampling kits. But maybe it's because I didn't come from the industry, that I was also very strict, and I know that there are certain things that you cannot play with. So for me, that way was a red line. It's we need to do it right. And now, like in retrospective, it was a good decision. Like not only for patients and because of the obvious reasons, but because it has given us a competitive advantage. Now the companies that haven't gone through that path is like, what should I do? Should I go through this hell, or should I just hire this company that has already solved for it? No. So now we have a little bit of a leg up, but it wasn't obvious at the beginning. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if you want other, like international companies, for example, to come to Spain and try the technologies that maybe they have been tested in other countries stuff, but the entry barrier is so high, like it's not good for the system. So we need to find the fine-tuning where it's fast enough to be super safe, but it's not strenuously super long. Because at the same time, when you're building a company, in our case, we were like super lucky that we are not diagnostics or treatment, so we are in the middle, and it allowed us to be real quick. And this also impacts on the way you can build a company. If you know that you're going to spend for 6 years trying to do the validation that will allow you to go to try the market, then it's forcing you a path of investment and other things that maybe are not the best way or the way you would do your company, right? So if this also impacts on the kind of companies that we build and how these companies operate, because they're forcing you to go into the unicorn path, and not all the companies are built for this.
Yeah, I think that I'm conscious of time, and I really like what you do. I think you have a very special business, and I would love if you could share with us how was that first time that you put the product into a child. What was that reaction?
Actually, it was really funny because my project started as the final thesis project for the university, so I never imagined it being in a real hospital implementing it. But time passes, and then eventually we managed to convince Teresa Franco to start a clinical trial in the hospital and stuff. And then we developed the Nixie kits, we developed the video. We had children in the process, but no real children had tried it, like no real patient. Children had tried it, but not a real... No, children tried it, but not a patient going through a surgery. We needed the first one to be someone. And the hospital was so rushed into doing a press release and stuff, and then television was like, yeah, we're going to come to the hospital, we need to shoot this. And they told me, okay, television is coming on Friday. And I was like, okay, is a patient coming on Friday? Yeah, the first one. I was like, oh my God, this is not going to be good. So I come into the elevator room with a guy from the television with a huge camera, myself and the family, and then we got to the surgery, and I was like, hi, I'm Julian, I'm coming to the surgery. I was like, oh no, it's the first patient. And it went great. Like, the family was super thankful, and these children had an older brother that had a disability, a mental disability, so he was really traumatized by the time that he needed to go through a surgery.
Wow.
So Julian was really afraid because he saw the experience of his older brother, and hopefully he was really calm and he was able to grab the mask by himself and stuff. So it was like the first children, but at the same time it was like a super happy story to push us, like, okay, we need to go this way, we're doing something right, like, let's keep pushing.
Wow,
Amazing.
that's a great story. Amazing. I think we're almost at time. So, I mean, I want to first, I think we have the option of letting you ask questions if you have any. Good.
Well, my question is, you guys, both your you guys were talking about the difficulty of expressing the outcomes value, but you guys are in the experience field, it seems. Both of your companies are providing patient experience, and if you're trying to phrase experience as medical outcomes, I can understand the difficulty. Why not just phrase it as we're here to improve patients' experience? That should be a factor in the whole ecosystem. Why try to convert it? I can understand the medical field only talking in one, but if you phrase that as experience, wouldn't that open a different aspect for it?
I think both of you should answer, but just before, I just want to say patient experience. We talked about the problem of ROI. Patient experience does not translate as much.
It's nice to have.
Yeah.
Why? Companies like, almost all companies have service representatives that help their customers get better experience, and it's hard to translate that to ROI. They just understand that if they don't provide good customer experience, there's a cost to it. Why should the medical field be any different? I mean, it sounds to me like there is as much quote-unquote ROI in service and experience as there would be in any other aspect. If it's framed that way, maybe it'll be easier to understand in the domain. I don't know, it's just what I'm trying to understand.
I think we're going this way. I think it's just a matter of time. We're seeing a lot of hospitals talking about humanization and patient experience, and I think in the US they are taking the lead on this part, and it's coming. At least in Spain, we're starting to see a lot of hospitals interested in patient experience, but we're not yet there on, okay, they all love it and they all want to have it, but at the end of the process, it goes down to how much are you saving. But it's changing. I think the patient experience, of course, is important, and people in the hospitals can see the importance of this. It's not that they don't see it, they see it, but something needs to change, I think, on the return on investment measurement.
Yeah, you're absolutely
analysis.
right. Don't get me wrong. The paradigm has to change. The focus, this is exactly what, I mean, specifically we're trying to talk about, is how to humanize tech. We need to focus on the patients or the experience of the patient. Even the providers, if we focus on the experience of the providers and we make their well-being better, then indirectly we're making the patient's experience from the physicians better. The focus should be on the humans. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.